Imagine a book so enigmatic it seemed more dangerous than weapons. A text so strange and unsettling that it was secretly copied by one of the planet's most secretive agencies. Not as a literary work, but as a silent tool of mind control. This isn't a movie plot, it's a true story that spanned decades. It wasn't about informing, but about reprogramming. It was a practical guide to psychological manipulation that crossed borders, passed through governments, infiltrated social networks, and without you realizing it, ended up reaching your own routine as well. But what happens when techniques created in cold interrogation rooms are recycled as if they were mere motivation? When the same script used to break the minds of spies is repurposed to sell courses, create gurus, or turn followers into true servants? The book the CIA copied wasn't just a stack of pages. It was a code, a shortcut to the human mind. The video you're watching isn't just about a historic plagiarism. It's about how we were led to believe we're in control, when in fact carefully placed phrases, planned emotional cycles, and intelligent algorithms gradually shape what we think, what we feel, and even who we believe we are. Are you sure you know what you want? Or have you been programmed to desire exactly what was offered to you? Take a deep breath. What comes next may change the way you see the world around you. And it all begins with something seemingly harmless, a children's book. Alice in Wonderland. The late rabbit, the nonsensical dialogues, the universe where the rules break at every moment. What seemed like a magical adventure ended up, unintentionally, inspiring one of the most dangerous mind manipulation techniques ever recorded. The creator of Scientology, a controversial man surrounded by disputes, realized that this kind of absurd narrative wasn't just art, it was a loophole, a flaw in common logic. From this idea was born the so-called Alice in Wonderland technique. The method was simple and frightening. The interlocutor was plunged into a tangle of contradictions until losing any reference to reality. The human brain, when left without logic to lean on, enters a silent panic. Like a castaway at sea, the mind tries to cling to anything that seems solid, even if it's just a loose board floating. It's at this fragile moment that the trick happens. In the middle of chaos, when the first clear and logical phrase appears, it's absorbed without filtering, accepted as absolute truth. It's the exact instant when the mind becomes vulnerable, open to any suggestion. Hubbard, as he was called, described this process back in the 1950s, long before people spoke of social networks, mass behavior, or subliminal manipulation. In his texts, he instructed that nonsensical excerpts from Lewis Carroll's own book be read aloud. The effect was immediate mental disorientation, almost like an internal short circuit. In the midst of this confused state came the precise phrase, "You can trust me," or "Only I have the path for you." From then on, the programming was underway and the victim didn't even notice. This technique wasn't theory. It was practice, and dangerous. For a long time it remained restricted to the closed circles of Scientology until, in 1961, something surprising happened. A CIA document was revealed to the public, the famous Kubar Counterintelligence Interrogation Manual. A secret interrogation manual that, when partially declassified, showed something shocking. There were passages almost identical to Hubbard's writings. Entire excerpts copied without any reference or credit. The CIA had turned that esoteric technique into an official interrogation weapon. And then the inevitable question arises. Why would an elite intelligence agency copy something from such a controversial religion, created by a science fiction writer? The answer is brutal, because it worked. It worked with frightening efficiency. It wasn't just a way to obtain confessions, it was a way to erase beliefs, to rewrite identities, to transform human beings into programmable receivers. The agents weren't just seeking hidden truths. They wanted conversions. They wanted to replace the original "I am" with "I believe in you." Now think about how this logic has crossed through time. What once happened in interrogation rooms, in closed, controlled, and tension-filled environments, has now spread like smoke everywhere. Techniques that were once considered tools of psychological warfare began to be used in unexpected areas. They appeared in religious sermons, in sales strategies, and with the rise of the internet, infiltrated social networks. The costume has changed, but the script remains the same. First create confusion, then offer the promise of clarity, and finally present the exit as if it were the only one. This cycle of disorientation and surrender has become invisible and, precisely because of that so effective, It repeats itself in motivational lectures, in self-help videos, in short online classes. What once seemed restricted to the military and intelligence agents has been transformed into entertainment, into marketing, into a tool of daily influence. The difference is that now it is no longer about interrogating a prisoner, but about conquering the minds of millions of people at the same time. And here comes an important twist. This technique didn't remain stuck in the 1960s. It was refined. The CIA added elements of hypnosis, combined discoveries from behavioral psychology, and created an even more sophisticated arsenal. The interrogation manual didn't just repeat Hubbard's ideas, it expanded them. It was as if they had mixed magic, science, and political interests into a single formula. The result was the birth of an invisible war, fought inside the human mind. In the past, the goal was to break the resistance of enemies. Today, the logic has been reversed. If a technique can destroy someone, it can also rebuild that person, only according to the will of the one applying it. The weakened mind becomes raw material to mold new selves, more obedient, more aligned, more useful. And this doesn't just happen in secret prisons. It is happening here, now, on a global scale. While the media focuses on visible technological advances, like faster phones or increasingly colorful social networks, the true progress is happening invisibly. Algorithms have learned to induce human emotions in planned cycles: confusion, relief, chaos, promise. It is the same sequence described decades ago, only now applied to billions of users at the same time. And within this scenario arises a devastating concept: emotional fractionation. It works by alternating intense feelings to make the mind more vulnerable. First a funny video, then a tragedy, followed by a scene of triumph, and soon after, a political fight. This emotional roller coaster isn't by chance, it's engineering. The more unstable you feel, the more open you are to receiving the next message as truth. Recent studies show that this alternation can increase by nearly half the chance of a person accepting an idea presented immediately afterward, especially if it comes from someone perceived as an authority. Thus, your timeline has become an invisible battlefield. The weapons are not bombs or bullets. They are short videos, impactful phrases, and charismatic influencers. The soldiers are friendly faces, engaging voices, and recommendation systems that seem to predict your tastes. And the target is direct: your attention, your logic, your identity. The most disturbing part is that it's not just about selling products. What's being sold is belonging, the idea of being part of a tribe. It is the promise of a new version of yourself, stronger, freer, more aware. But this promise only comes true if you follow the method, buy the course, or accept the offered code. The plot is the same as the interrogations of the past, but now wrapped in vibrant colors and captivating music. These techniques, which once destabilized prisoners, are now part of a much subtler process. First, they strip you of confidence in your own beliefs. Then they offer an alternative, personalized, adapted to the style of your bubble, with the right aesthetics, with the words you recognize, with the seduction of exclusivity. And without realizing it, you give in, not because you were forced, but because you're tired, because the emotional cycle wears you down, and the new narrative finally seems to make sense. But here is the uncomfortable truth. If your timeline is built by manipulated emotions, what remains authentic in your decisions? Is the next video you're going to watch the result of your own choice, or just another command disguised as a suggestion? The trick of modern manipulation is not to look like manipulation. It presents itself as empowerment, as personal growth, as freedom. But behind inspiring phrases and calculated charisma, the process is always the same: confuse, destabilize, insert, and repeat. Maybe you think you're too strong to be influenced. But just remember the Milgram experiment, conducted in the 1960s. In a controlled environment, almost 7 out of 10 people administered shocks they believed to be lethal to another human being, simply because a figure of authority said it was necessary. There were no weapons pointed, no physical torture, just the repeated order and the pressure of a carefully staged scenario. Today this scenario has a new name. It's called the Internet. The white lab coat has been replaced by the blue verification badge. The controlled environment is now the optimized feed. The promise of obedience is dressed up as the promise of success. And we keep obeying. We buy, we share, we defend ideas we often never stop to question. Because without realizing it, we've already gone through all the stages of the process. We've been led from confusion to destabilization, then guided to a new identity, and finally reprogrammed. Manipulation doesn't just affect what you decide to buy or who you vote for. It goes further. It reaches what you believe yourself to be. When your identity is captured, everything else comes with it. You don't just believe in something, you become it. That's why digital tribes are so powerful. They offer exactly what the brain craves in times of chaos: belonging, the feeling of stability amid confusion. And when you enter a tribe that brings a clear narrative, a common enemy, and a charismatic leader, leaving becomes almost impossible. Because it's no longer about ideas, but about who you are. And then comes the final twist. You're no longer the audience, you are the product. Every click, every comment, every second of attention feeds artificial intelligences that learn, in real time, how to keep you longer, how to fragment your thoughts, and how to make your mind receptive to the next stimulus. You are inside a laboratory without walls. The experiment never stops. The goal is no longer just to sell an object or an idea. The goal is to shape you, condition your reactions, direct your choices without you realizing you're being led. The scariest part is that you'll never know when it began, which video broke your resistance, which phrase made you lower your guard. At what point did you stop thinking critically and start just accepting? By this point, the question is no longer whether you've been manipulated, but how many versions of yourself were tested until one fit the narrative offered to you. Take a deep breath and ask yourself, who would you be if we removed all the imposed influences along the way? Maybe there's still a way to recover what is truly yours, your consciousness. If you've made it this far, it wasn't by accident. Something inside you already sensed that the pieces weren't fitting together. That opinions, desires, and even fears may have been carefully planted. This video is not a denunciation, it's a mirror. And sometimes the reflection it shows can be uncomfortable, but it can also be liberating. And if this journey has moved you, share your vision, even if it goes against the current. That's how we create a community that questions instead of just consuming. The choice is now yours. To keep following an invisible script or to start writing your own.